Okay, first of all, thanks everyone for attending. I'm Attorney General Anthony Brown, and today we're here to announce indictments and charges following an investigation into horrifying string of violence in the Baltimore area. Later in my remarks, I'm going to thank a few people, but I really want to start out by saying sincerely, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the men and women in law enforcement, the Baltimore City Police Department, the men and women who carry the shield, the agents with ATF. And I think about all the cases that my office has the privilege of doing, investigating and prosecuting. I think I speak on behalf of the state's attorney and the U.S. attorney. We know that we couldn't do this work without the gallant, committed, dedicated work of the men and women in uniform. They are on the front lines. They work with the confidential informants. They work the wires. They do the undercover. They do the physical and the electronic surveillance. They bring us the cases that we have the privilege to work with them to investigate and prosecute on behalf of the people of Baltimore City, and certainly in the case of the Office of the Attorney General throughout Maryland. So I want to start by giving a real big shout out to our law enforcement partners. I want to thank Mayor Scott for his leadership on so many fronts, and I want to congratulate you for your recent success in taking ghost guns off the streets of Baltimore City, and I'm confident that's going to have positive ripple effects throughout the state of Maryland, I dare say the country. Commissioner Worley, thank you for your leadership of the men and women who I acknowledged just recently. I also want to thank ATF Special Agent Purcell for your leadership as well. The group that we are talking about today, those who have been indicted and charged, includes 4 adults. You'll hear more detail, and 2 youth, and they're responsible for more than 80 violent incidents throughout the course of just over 1 year, including 1 homicide, 2 attempted murders, multiple armed robberies, armed carjackings, and firearm violations. These crimes endangered residents and instilled fear in communities throughout Baltimore City and the surrounding areas. We do not tolerate the reckless behavior that plagued our streets and changed innocent lives forever. Though nothing can bring back the life that was stolen or erase the traumatic stress that accompanied these attacks, I hope these indictments help bring some peace of mind to the victims and their families. The Office of the Attorney General, we prioritize public safety and security. We work alongside our local and federal law enforcement partners, and we do that through our organized crime unit to bring violent offenders to justice. The organized crime unit works across county and municipal lines throughout the state to do our part, and each of us has a part to play. That's our part in ensuring the well-being of Baltimore residents and all Marylanders. Since I took office, the Office of the Attorney General, our criminal division, our organized crime unit, we've worked with our law enforcement partners, and we've been responsible for a few things. We've removed 181 guns off Maryland streets. We've confiscated $2.8 million in criminal funds, and we've seized 29 kilograms of lethal heroin and fentanyl mixtures and 109 kilograms of cocaine. The success of the organized crime unit has been remarkable, and the impacts are evident here in Baltimore City and throughout our state. Just a month ago, Governor Moore announced at his State of the State that crime is down and homicides in Baltimore City are the lowest they've been in 9 years. We're bringing criminals to justice, making our streets safer, and reducing crime and lawlessness in our neighborhoods, and the men and women standing behind me should get the credit and take responsibility for that downward trend. So I applaud you, and I congratulate you, and I thank you for that. However, one issue we continue to see, as witnessed in this case, is continued youth involvement in crimes. We must address the root causes of youth participating in crimes and find ways to prevent them from believing a life of crime is their only option. Gun violence is also rampant in our communities, and the devastating effects leave scars that never heal. We must continue to take guns off our streets, and I know that together with the help of law enforcement and dedicated community leaders and members, we can accomplish this. This investigation that brought us here this morning was led by the Baltimore City Police and the ATF, and none of it would have been possible without their partnership and commitment to public safety and solving these crimes. The detectives, police officers, ATF agents, and attorneys in the organized crime unit of the Criminal Division work together tirelessly to bring these individuals to justice. Thank you for your hard work. Investigating and prosecuting these crimes takes a lot of dedication, and our communities are better because of it. So together, I do believe that we will continue to make Maryland safer. I want to thank each and every one of you. And with that, let me turn it over to Katie Dorian, the Chief of the Criminal Division in the Office of the Attorney General.
Good afternoon. As the Attorney General said, this was a long and thorough investigation conducted by the ATF, BPD, and the Organized Crime Unit of the Attorney General's Criminal Division, which culminated in the indictments of 5 individuals, 4 adults, and a youth charged as an adult. An additional youth was too young to be charged as an adult with the co-defendants, so that individual is being handled in juvenile court. Pursuant to the confidentiality rules governing juvenile records, we will not be able to discuss the 2 juveniles today, so we're going to just focus on the 4 adults. The 4 adults, all of whom are currently being held pending trial, are Inicio Rodriguez from Baltimore, who turned 19 years old during the course of this crime pattern, and who is charged with 156 counts, including participation in a criminal organization and the first-degree murder of Delaka Augans. A firearm which has been discharged at one of the incidents was located at his residence on March 9, 2023. Kevin Mills from Lanham, who turned 20 during the pattern, is charged with 86 counts, including 7 carjackings and attempted carjackings, among other charges. During the pattern of violence, 3 stolen vehicles were located near his residence, and one of the victim's identification cards and credit cards were located in his residence. Lavelle Little from Baltimore, who turned 18 during the pattern, is charged with 269 counts, including participation in a criminal organization and 19 carjackings and attempted carjackings, among other charges. 2 firearms were located at his residence on February 8, 2023, including one that was stolen during the violent pattern. Twan Ellis from Baltimore, who turned 18 during the pattern, is charged with 67 counts, including 2 armed carjackings. One of the victim's identification cards was located at his residence during a search warrant on March 9, 2023. The Attorney General has already said this, but just as a reminder, all of the defendants are presumed innocent unless and until we prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in court. Everything I'm about to say and the indictments are mere accusations. So these co-defendants are all charged with the same 4 overarching counts: participation in a criminal organization, which is essentially Maryland's state RICO charge, conspiracy to participate in a criminal organization, common law conspiracy, and theft scheme over $100,000. Those overarching counts are identical for each defendant and include the background of the conspiracy, manner and means of the conspiracy, as well as over 80 criminal acts that this group is alleged to have committed in furtherance of the conspiracy between approximately April 2022 through August 2023, including the following: 1 murder, 2 attempted murders, 5 additional shootings, 1 home invasion, 36 carjackings, 8 attempted carjackings, 5 robberies, some of which had multiple victims, and 11 commercial burglaries, among other things. In addition to the 4 overarching counts, each of the defendant also has some number of additional substantive charges related to their specific role in this conspiracy, including murder, attempted murder, home invasion, armed carjacking, armed robbery, handgun crimes, etc. The number of counts ranges from 67 to 269. The indictments allege that the defendants worked together as a criminal organization to commit and carry out a spree of carjackings, robberies, commercial robberies, burglaries, and thefts. The individuals would target victims who had just parked their cars and were exiting their vehicles or walking to and from their homes or getting gas. They would take the victim's property and flee in the stolen vehicle. The defendants would then use the stolen vehicles to commit other violent acts, and on many occasions, the group would use a stolen vehicle to block in a vehicle that was driving or had just parked in order to carjack the new vehicle. The organization would sell the other stolen personal property on Facebook Marketplace and elsewhere. Many of the vehicles were subsequently stored or abandoned in and around Baltimore, especially in the Coppin Heights and Ashco East neighborhoods of West Baltimore. These locations operated as hubs for the group's operations. During the robberies and carjackings, the group would wear masks and dark clothing and approach the victims in an organized fashion while displaying handguns, which they would often point at the victims' heads, and demanding the victims give over their property, threatening to shoot the victims and saying things like, "Get the F out or we will kill you," and "Give me everything before I blow your head off," On one occasion, after they forced the victim onto the ground, one member of the group told another member to run the victim over. On several occasions, the group pistol whipped the victim and or shot the victims or otherwise assaulted the victims. In addition to the carjackings and personal robberies, the organization also committed several commercial burglaries. On several occasions, the group would use bricks and rocks to break glass windows and doors of businesses and then steal property, including cash registers and ATMs. You can read the indictment for more information on the over 80 incidents affecting over 80 separate victims, but I'm just going to highlight a few of those today. On October 29, 2022, a victim was paying for gas in the area of the 5600 block of Reisterstown Road when the group attempted to steal the victim's vehicle. The victim resisted, and a member of the group fired 4 shots at the victim. Luckily, the victim was unharmed. The group had arrived to that area in a vehicle that was stolen 6 days prior. A tool mark analysis was performed on shell casings that were recovered from the scene, and analysts were able to determine that those cases were consistent with the casings recovered from another shooting which had occurred about a month before. On November 3rd, 2022, the group committed a series of robberies and carjackings. In the area of the 200 block of West 23rd Street, the group approached a victim that was sitting in her vehicle. The group displayed handguns with green lasers attached and threatened to shoot the victim if she did not exit the vehicle. They ultimately stole the vehicle, which they used to cut off another vehicle in the area of the 2500 block of Brookfield Avenue later that night. When they cut off the vehicle and forced it to stop moving, the group approached the vehicle, which was being driven by a rideshare driver with 3 other occupants. The driver attempted to evade the group and drive away, but one of the individuals fired a handgun into the vehicle, killing one of the passengers, Delica Augans, a 38-year-old female from Baltimore, Maryland. 2 9mm shell casings were recovered from the scene that were later found to be consistent with the shell casings from 3 prior incidents, including the one I just mentioned that occurred on October 29, 2022. On December 10, 2022, the group attempted to carjack an individual near the 3200 block of Rosalie Road and ultimately shot the victim in the head, although he survived. The shell casings recovered from the scene were later found to be consistent with the shell casings from 4 other incidents committed by the group, including the ones I just mentioned and the homicide that occurred on November 3rd. All of these cases are being prosecuted in Baltimore County. Kevin Mills currently has a trial date for April 8th, 2024, but the other trial dates have not yet been set. As the Attorney General said, these charges could not have been brought without the hard work of our partners, especially ATF Special Agent Brendan Plasha and ATF TEO Detective Sean Richenberg, who have really been instrumental in solving some of these serious violent patterns, including this one. I also want to thank Baltimore Police Department Sergeant Josh Rutson and Detective Dan Vernice, who were also crucial to putting together this pattern and solving these cases. I will now turn it over to Baltimore Police Commissioner Worley.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you to Attorney General Brown, representatives from ATF, the Baltimore County Police Department, the State's Attorney's Office, and Mayor Scott for his continued support of the BPD. Special thanks to the AG's Criminal Division for taking on so many very complex and time-consuming cases, which is led by Katie Dorian. BPD's Crime Gun Intelligence Unit, which now works closely within the Mayor's Group Violence Reduction Strategy within the Group Violence Unit, collaborated with ATF and other units within the Criminal Investigation Division to charge these individuals. With their hard work and cooperation of our law enforcement partners, we were once again able to bring down a criminal enterprise that carried out multiple violent crime sprees throughout Baltimore. These individuals have done extensive damage to the city's neighborhoods and communities. This takedown is the latest in a series of coordinated investigations that led to multiple arrests, in this case 6 arrests to 80 cases. We will continue to work together to arrest individuals who wreak havoc in our city, damage the quality of life of our citizens, and traumatize all those affected. As the BPD continues to work hard to rebuild trust within the community, I want to expressly thank those community members who helped us and provided tips related to this investigation. I hope that we continue to create and build relationships that will make it easier and more comfortable for individuals to share information with us. In conclusion, I want to thank our Crime Gun Intelligence Unit, some of whom are here today, for their hard work and dedication to this investigation. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to ATF's ASAC, Joe Persales.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Attorney General Brown and Commissioner Worley. I'd just like to thank our partners for their hard work on this case, especially the Baltimore Police Department and the Attorney General's Criminal Division. And these partnerships that are helping make our streets safer. As the speakers before me stated, this was a long and complex investigation. At the time, and the investigators and prosecutors worked tirelessly to solve this pattern of secure charges in this case. These types of cases highlight the important work of the Crime Gun Intelligence Center and showcase how crucial NIBIN links and timely turnaround can be to lead investigators in the right direction. Together, we are leveraging our respective strengths to remove violent repeat offenders from Maryland streets. Lastly, I want to specifically recognize the Attorney General's Criminal Division. I don't know if the public realizes quite how much work they do in this arena. We have partnered with them on many complex violent patterns, and we are grateful for their willingness to always take on these cases. A lot of these cases, like the ones we're discussing here today, would not come to fruition without them. I would now like to turn over to Mayor Scott.
Good afternoon. I want to start off by thanking Attorney General Brown, Chief Dory, and the AG's Organized Crime Unit for indicting these violent individuals. I want to continue to thank Commissioner Worley, as well as the Baltimore County Police Department, our partners in ATF, for doing the work in not just this case, but each and every day to track down folks who are committing acts of violence across the streets of Baltimore City, and for their role in getting this group of individuals off the streets. As you heard, this group is responsible for dozens and dozens of violent crimes ranging from homicide and attempted murder to carjacking and armed robbery. It is clear that they actively harm neighborhoods across the Baltimore region and jeopardize the individual safety of our residents. Every single one of these counts in these indictments reflects a victim and their family who are enduring the impact of their actions. We want to provide every opportunity for everyone in Baltimore, especially our young people in our city, to make the right choices. We want them to take those opportunities to surround themselves with the right people and help build up our city, not tear it down. But when people continuously make the wrong choice over and over again, we can and will hold them accountable. With these indictments, we are sending the message that violence will not be tolerated, that we will not allow these actions in our communities, and if you make the choice to put our residents in danger and engage in violent criminal activity, you will be held accountable. We have to build a system in a world which these young people get what they need before they end up on this path. Doing that means tackling the proliferation of guns into our communities and tackling a culture of gun violence that too often takes hold. So many of these groups' actions listed in these indictments were made possible because of the easy access that they have to these weapons. Making that harder is exactly why, together with many of our partners represented here today, we will remain focused on getting guns off our streets at every level, and will pursue accountability for everyone, from the people who pull the trigger and the people who put the guns on the streets in the first place. Tackling these issues will take all of us, not just the Attorney General's office, not just BPD or City Hall, but everyone in our neighborhoods and our communities to continue to do the right thing and be a part of driving down violence in Baltimore, even if that's simply just letting the police know that you know something. That focus and collaboration and involve all-above approach is how we're driving down violence in Baltimore, and we're going to continue to do that each and every day. We know that there's much more work to do, but with the strong partnership between the Attorney General's office, the police department, the state's attorney, ATF, and our other law enforcement partners, and most importantly, the community, we will continue to drive down violence in Baltimore City. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll take some questions.
I have a question. When were these, why are they being prosecuted or held in Baltimore County? When were they arrested, taken into custody?
Sure, and I'll start, and I'll certainly let Paul elaborate. But the statute that we operate under in the Office of the Attorney General gives us the ability to bring a case as a venue provision in any county where any one of the offenses connected with the group has occurred. And while we don't go into detail about the tactical or strategic reasons behind why we may bring a case in a particular venue, the enabling statute that we operate in gives us that flexibility to do that. But I'll turn it over to Paul, who may be able to shed a little bit more on that.
I think the Attorney General handled that perfectly.
I have a question about the timing when they were taken into custody,
Yeah, so Paul Halliday, Chief of the Organized Crime Unit for the Attorney General's Office. So a number of these individuals were arrested back in October for these indictments, and one of the reasons that we're here today is because some of the cases were outstanding, were not unsealed until just recently. In fact, the last of the adult defendants was supposed to have an arraignment or an initial appearance just yesterday that was vacated, but that's one of the reasons that we're here today. But a number of these individuals have been held at least since October.
So then, just one follow-up, I promise.
Sure.
Then, how many other enterprises, criminal organizations are you looking at now? Because this has been going on like this in the city since October.
Yeah, I can't answer specific questions about our investigations. I can tell you we're very busy. We know that the state's attorney's office is very busy as well with a number of these types of investigations.
How about the commissioner?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they aren't the only 4 criminals in Baltimore, or the only 8 criminals in Baltimore. So there are plenty of copycats who try to do the same thing, but we have a very good relationship. We have a citywide robbery unit that constantly looks at that. We work with the state's attorney's office, and we're prosecuting and making arrests every single day. Last year, our carjackings were actually down. Most people believe they were up, but they were down. And that's because the men and women, the hard work, we've made so many arrests, and our strategy was so good, they changed their strategy, so we have to adjust our strategy. And we will continue to drive down the violence in the city along with carjackings and street robberies.
Commissioner. Question for you. Just doing a preliminary search on case search, it looks like LaBelle Little was previously arrested at the beginning of last year for a gun charge, and then he violated his probation over the summer. Do you know anything about the details of his criminal history and why he was out the streets?
That's actually a question for me and not the police commissioner. This is our frustration that we have every single day. You guys hear me talk about this time and time again. When the women and men of BPD go out and make these arrests and they go over onto the other side, we can't continue to see those same individuals back out on the street who are committing more acts of violence, which is why we have great partnerships with the state's attorney and attorney general, which is why you hear all of us talking about the need for policy change in Annapolis and other places to make sure that these individuals are not consistently violent individuals ending up back on the streets.
How many of these crimes are committed here in the city versus in county? There was talk of both jurisdictions.
Sure. Paul?
Yeah, so the indictment lays out the location of each of the incidents. The vast majority of them were in Baltimore City. There was a commercial burglary in Baltimore County at one point.
And I know you said you can't talk about juveniles in this case, but can you speak to how many of these 80 violent crimes these juveniles were allegedly involved in?
No, I can't, unfortunately, yeah.
Will they be tried together?
That hasn't been decided at this time, and the juveniles can't be tried with the adults as long as they remain in juvenile court. But that'll be determined by the courts and by the prosecutors later.
This would probably be for the Attorney General. The use of social media, the fact that they were posing with these stolen property and cash on social media and then using Facebook Marketplace, how common is that? And did it also maybe surprise you just like how brazen they were?
Well, nothing surprises me in this line of work, right, what they do. And I'm going to let others speak to, their more in-depth experience with social media platforms. I can say as a general matter, we've got a real problem with social media platforms, and that's true whether you're talking about criminality and messaging around crime, or quite frankly, whether it has to do with harmful content that is pushed to our teenagers. And I, along with attorneys general around the country, are looking at what we can do to change the behavior of social media platforms to make that accessibility, to limit, if not eliminate, the accessibility of that platform for those reasons. But of course, you're up against First Amendment and other protections that the platforms enjoy. But I'll let others speak to perhaps the experience in terms of trends in this area.
Did social media help you catch these guys?
What I can say is that when we get involved in the investigations, we use a lot of different techniques and a lot of different ways of getting evidence, especially working with ATF and Baltimore Police Department. When we get involved, we like to explore all possible options, whether it's social media, financial applications, phones, anything that we can get from phones. We try to explore all possible evidence that we can get, and that's one of the things we like to help them with their requests to obtain. So it's very common in these types of investigations to look anywhere where there could be evidence of the crimes, to look for that evidence.
So I would say that this is probably not as shocking to us as it is to you all to hear this, but these types of patterns, especially that are linked with the NIBIN leads and come to us through ATF, are pretty common. I think the state's attorney's office probably has quite a few in the same realm because they're patterns. So when these crime patterns happen, we, to the extent that we can make the connections, there's a whole bunch of robberies and, everything you hear in here, carjackings, everything connected, and each victim would be a separate charge.